Adam. How has it been creating this new American version of Death Note?
Well, it's been, a huge undertaking, like I've been attached to it for about 2 years, and I think the hardest thing about it was probably developing the screenplay for it. It was one of those things where there's just so many moving pieces to it, and the fact that you're dealing with like a very outlandish story. I mean, it's literally a supernatural notebook that kills people, and dealing with child detectives and teenage detectives and all those kind of things. It's not an easy story to just nail in the first go, and it was one of those things where I think we were really working on that script right up until the first day of shooting.
Why did you set it in the United States?
There was already the Japanese live-action films and the anime that had already kind of adapted the manga very faithfully, and so I think the idea behind this was just to take the sort of core themes of what does Death Note mean, like the good and evil and what's in between, what's the gray area, and the cat and mouse chase between light and L, and put that into a new context. And the cool thing about putting it in a different country is that it really informs a lot of changes. I mean, you kind of have to change quite a bit, which is very freeing, but also a little scary, because that certain people are just gonna, they're not gonna be able to let go of that, and I totally get that and respect that, but ultimately, whenever we decided to move it to America, you just have to make a lot of changes.
I wanted to ask you that because there are lots of fans who really love the story and are quite scared of all these changes because they feel they look closely to every detail. What would you tell them?
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, like the film itself really stays true to, I think, like the themes of Death Note. But most importantly, I mean, I think we're making a movie that it's just a cool movie. I mean, like I think a lot of times in the past when anime have been made into live action things, especially in America, they just come off as cheesy and they're too focused on trying to make it feel anime-ish, and for me, I wanted to take the anime vibe, but then really kind of put it in a completely different context. I didn't want to film it like it was an anime, I wanted to film it like as though the anime didn't exist, and that it was just a movie that had all these crazy things. But what was interesting about that was keeping that in mind, when I finally watched the full movie with all the sound mix and everything and all the special effects done, I realized that there's a whole lot of anime kind of vibe in it. It's like you can't really get away from it. It just kind of naturally comes up. But yeah.
Do mixing teenagers and death can be risky and maybe controversial, as we have seen recently in 13 Reasons Why? Are you scared of these reactions?
Well, to be honest with you, like that's just not something I really thought about while we were making it, but hopefully it won't be, anything crazy. I mean, I think that, you can't really think about those kind of things when you're making a movie. I mean, I don't think that anything in the film promotes violence necessarily. I mean, there is a lot of violence in the movie and it is associated with kids, but ultimately, I think that the movie, the moral of the film comes out that this was not a good thing. I don't think that Light comes out of this feeling good about himself or anything. So.
Are we having a sequel?
Hopefully, yeah. I think there will be, and I think that there's a great setup for it. And what's cool about doing a sequel is that, I think that we start Light out in this one place in his journey. He's like a normal kid who gets, kind of sucked into this whole, crazy world. And the sequel, I think the cool thing about exploring that is that we would be able to see him get a lot darker,
How has been having William Dafoe's voice and not working with him? Because did he have his voice while he was filming?
We didn't have it while we were filming, but it is not just his voice. We actually did motion capture with him as well. So it is actually his facial expressions and stuff of what you can see of that character's face and everything. And yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it was kind of scary because it was like, when you're filming it, you're like, I hope that, he's going to do it this way, and like, You know, but whenever I first started working with him, I mean, you know, I let him know, like, you know, here's the edit of the film. You know, like, we did our first pass with him doing, you know, his voiceover and everything. But for me, it was important that he didn't feel restrained what we had, you know. It was like, if you want to do something different, don't worry about the timing that we have here. You know, we can re-edit it around, you know, your performance, basically. But ultimately, we didn't really have to change too much around what he was doing. It just kind of all fell into place.
Okay, thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.